The weather started getting rough.
It's one of the 4 boats used in the Gilligan's Island series that aired in the 1960s.
Many people have watched Gilligan's Island again and again, enjoying its simple humor and light-hearted stories. At first, everything in the show seems normal and easy to follow. But if you slow down and really pay attention, you start to notice something interesting. Small details appear that don't quite match what you expect. These details are not always obvious. In fact, most viewers miss them the first time. But once you notice them, they become impossible to ignore. A simple photo or short scene can suddenly look very different. It feels like the show is hiding secrets in plain sight. These hidden bloopers and mistakes are not meant to be seen, but they still made it into the final version. Instead of ruining the experience, they actually make the show more fun to watch. They remind us that real people were working behind the scenes, and not everything went perfectly during filming. From strange changes in objects to quick actor mistakes, each blooper tells its own story. These moments give us a new way to look at a classic show. They also show how television was made in the past, when editing tools were not as advanced as they are today. As you go deeper, you begin to understand that even a simple comedy like Gilligan's Island has layers that most people never notice. All it takes is a closer look, a bit of patience, and a curious mind. Once you start seeing these details, the show feels completely different, almost like you are discovering it for the first time all over again. One of the most surprising things about the show is how the island itself does not always make sense. The story tells us that the castaways are alone on a small, empty island, cut off from the rest of the world. This idea is very important because it creates the main problem of the show. 7 people are stuck together with no help and must survive on their own. However, as the episodes continue, something strange begins to happen. New people suddenly appear on the island, each claiming they have been there for a long time. This creates a confusing situation. If the island is small, how can so many people live there without meeting each other? It starts to feel like the island is much bigger than it looks. There seem to be hidden areas where people can stay without being noticed. This breaks the idea that the castaways are truly alone. It also raises questions about how the island works. Maybe it is not just one simple place, but something more complex. While this might sound like a mistake, it also adds a sense of mystery. It makes viewers think more deeply about what they are seeing. Instead of just watching the story, they begin to question it. This hidden detail changes the meaning of the show in a subtle way. It shows that even a simple setting can have unexpected layers. Once you notice this, the idea of isolation no longer feels as strong as it did before. Another interesting blooper happens so quickly that most people never notice it. In one episode, all the castaways are knocked unconscious and lie still on the ground. The scene is meant to show that they are completely out, with no movement at all. Everything looks perfect at first. But if you watch very closely, you will see something unusual. One of the characters, Mrs. Howell, briefly opens her eyes and then quickly closes them again. This small movement lasts only a second, but it breaks the illusion of the scene. Suddenly, you remember that these are actors, not real unconscious people. This kind of mistake is easy to understand. Staying completely still for even a short time can be very difficult. Actors must control their breathing, avoid blinking, and remain focused while the cameras are recording. Even a tiny slip can be captured on film. This moment shows how challenging acting can be, especially in scenes that require stillness. It also adds a human touch to the show. Instead of being perfect, the scene feels more real because of the mistake. Once you notice it, you cannot stop looking for it every time you watch the episode. It becomes one of those small details that changes how you see the scene forever. The famous boat, the SS Minnow, also has its share of strange changes. At the beginning of the show, the boat looks simple and consistent. It carries the passengers on what is supposed to be a short trip. But if you pay close attention, you will notice that the boat does not always look the same. In some scenes, parts of the boat are missing or appear different. For example, the upper deck might not be there in one shot, but it appears in another. The shape of the front section can also change. These differences are easy to miss because viewers are focused on the story and characters. However, once you notice them, they stand out clearly. This happens because different scenes were filmed at different times, possibly using different versions of the boat. The filmmakers may not have matched every detail perfectly. Even though this is a mistake, it does not ruin the show. In fact, it adds charm. It reminds us that television production was not always perfect. These small errors show the effort behind the scenes and the challenges of filming. They also make the show more interesting to watch, especially for viewers who enjoy spotting hidden details. Some bloopers are more obvious once you know where to look. In one episode, Gilligan tries to escape using a small submarine. The idea seems serious at first, giving hope that he might finally reach help. But things quickly turn funny when he forgets to close the hatch. As the submarine moves, his legs are still visible outside, splashing in the water. This completely breaks the logic of the scene. Instead of looking like a real escape, it becomes a comedic moment. Another detail appears when a scuba tank can be seen near the submarine. This object clearly does not belong in the story. It was likely used by someone helping control the scene underwater. These mistakes reveal how the scene was filmed and what tools were used. They show that creating such scenes required teamwork and creative solutions. Even though the mistakes are visible, they do not take away from the fun. Instead, they add another layer of enjoyment. Viewers can laugh not only at the story but also at the behind-the-scenes errors. These moments highlight the playful nature of the show and remind us that entertainment does not have to be perfect to be enjoyable. As the show continues, even more small details begin to stand out. The castaways, who are only meant to be on a short trip, somehow have endless supplies. They change clothes often and seem to have everything they need. This does not make much sense, but it helps the story move forward. There are also moments where modern elements appear in the background, breaking the illusion of a remote island. For example, distant structures or studio elements can sometimes be seen. In another scene, a microphone shadow appears on the wall, revealing the filming equipment. These mistakes might seem small, but they completely change how the scene feels once you notice them. They remind viewers that the show was filmed on a set, not on a real island. Despite this, the show still works because of its strong characters and simple storytelling. These bloopers do not ruin the experience. Instead, they make it richer. They give viewers something extra to discover and talk about. In the end, Gilligan's Island remains enjoyable not because it is perfect, but because it is full of charm, creativity, and hidden surprises waiting to be found. One of the most interesting mysteries in the show comes from something many viewers never think about: the endless supplies that the castaways seem to have. At the start of the story, they are only supposed to be on a short 3-hour tour. This means they would not have packed much with them. Maybe just a few personal items, some basic clothing, and nothing more. But as the show goes on, this idea starts to fall apart. The characters are seen wearing different outfits again and again, as if they brought entire wardrobes with them. Mary Ann and Ginger especially appear in fresh clothes in many episodes, which does not match the idea of being stranded. Then there is the professor, who somehow has the knowledge and tools to build almost anything. He creates radios, machines, and even complex devices using simple island materials. The Howells, on the other hand, seem to have brought luxury items that make no sense for a short trip. All of this creates a strange situation where the castaways are both stranded and fully prepared at the same time. This contradiction may seem like a mistake, but it also plays an important role in the show. It allows the writers to create new and interesting situations without being limited by reality. Instead of focusing on survival alone, the show becomes more creative and fun. Viewers may notice the inconsistency, but they often accept it because it adds variety to the story. In a way, these endless supplies become part of the show's charm, showing that imagination is more important than strict logic. Another strange detail appears right at the beginning of the show, during the opening scenes of the journey. Everything seems simple and clear. The passengers board the boat, the theme song plays, and each character is introduced. But if you look closely, you might notice someone who does not belong. there is an extra crew member on the boat, someone who is not part of the main group. He appears briefly, doing his job, but then disappears completely after the storm. The show never explains what happened to him. He is not mentioned again, and no one seems to notice his absence. This creates a small mystery that stays with the viewer. It makes you wonder if this was a mistake or something that was simply forgotten during production. Perhaps the character was not meant to be important, or maybe the writers decided to remove him later. Whatever the reason, his sudden disappearance feels unusual. It is one of those details that only careful viewers will catch. Once you see it, it becomes impossible to ignore. It also reminds us that not everything in television is perfectly planned. Sometimes things change, and small details are left behind. These moments give us a glimpse into the creative process and show how shows can evolve over time. The radio signals in the show also create an interesting problem that many viewers never notice. From time to time, the castaways manage to pick up radio broadcasts from the outside world. These moments are meant to bring hope, showing that rescue might still be possible. The group gathers around and listens carefully, excited by the chance to hear voices from beyond the island. But there is a small detail that does not quite make sense. The radio stations they hear often use call signs that start with the letter W. In reality, these call signs are used by stations located in a specific part of the United States. The castaways, however, are supposed to be stranded on a remote island in the South Pacific, far away from those locations. This means the signals they are hearing should not be able to reach them. The distance is simply too great. This creates a clear mismatch between the story and reality. Most viewers never notice this because it requires some background knowledge. But once you understand it, the scenes feel different. They become another example of how the show focuses more on storytelling than strict accuracy. The goal is to create an emotional moment, not a technically perfect one.